You ever watch one of those massive blockbuster movies and find yourself wondering, okay, but how much of that actually happened? Well, today we're doing just that. We are diving deep into the incredible, real-life story behind one of India's most celebrated films. It's a story about one man who took on an entire industry just to give a billion people the chance to fly. And really, who better to set the stage than the man himself, Captain G.R. Gopinath? He was upfront about it, saying the film was heavily fictionalized. But, and this is the key part, he said it was outstanding in capturing the true essence of his journey. So while the details might be cinematic, the spirit of the struggle, that was 100% real. All right, so here's our flight plan. We'll start with the film and the man it's about. Then we'll look at this soldier's pretty unlikely dream, dive into his low-cost revolution, navigate all the turbulence he hit along the way, and finally really understand the incredible legacy he left behind. Okay, first up, the film and the man. Because you really have to get just how huge this movie was to see why his story suddenly exploded onto the world stage. So Soorarai Pottru, which means praise the brave, wasn't just some movie. No way. It came out in 2020, based on Gopinath's own book, and it just swept the National Film Awards. We're talking 5 wins, and even got attention at the Golden Globes. It became this massive phenomenon that took an amazing entrepreneurial journey and turned it into the ultimate underdog story for the whole world to see. But to really get the story, you gotta get the man. And believe me, his path was anything but typical. It started a million miles away from any airport or boardroom. I mean, check this out. He was born in a tiny village, went to military school, and then served as an army captain, even fighting in the Bangladesh Liberation War. But then, at just 28 years old, he decides to retire. What's next? A total whirlwind. He tried his hand at farming, ran a hotel, even dealt motorcycles. He was constantly trying new things, building up this incredible resilience with every single challenge. But none of that, not the battlefield, not the businesses, none of it could have prepared him for the one moment that would change everything. A moment that was born from an awful personal tragedy. So here's what happened. When his father was dying, Gopinath couldn't afford a plane ticket to get home in time. By the time he finally made the long trip by road and train, it was too late. That single devastating experience just lit a fire in him. He saw firsthand that flying was a luxury only for the rich, a massive injustice, and he swore he would change it. This wasn't just a business plan. For him, it became a crusade. And that personal crusade, well, it became the low-cost revolution. This is where Gopinath took all that pain and channeled it into a business model so radical, it was about to shake the very foundations of Indian aviation. And get this, he decided to launch an airline, right? One of the most expensive businesses in the world, with just 5 crore rupees. That's about 600,000 US dollars at the time. It was an impossibly small amount, basically scraped together from his life savings and some loans from friends. But his strategy was just brilliant. He launched his airline, Deccan, in 2003, and he modeled it after the American giant Southwest Airlines. So he stayed away from the big, crowded airports and instead flew to smaller, overlooked cities. And here's the masterstroke. He priced his tickets to compete not with other airlines, but with first-class train tickets. Think about what that meant for millions of people. The choice was no longer between a grueling 24-hour train ride or just not going at all. Suddenly, it was between that long train journey and a 1-hour flight, for pretty much the same price. It was an absolute game changer. And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures his whole mission. His target customer wasn't some fancy executive. It was the everyday person. He literally wanted the woman who cleaned his office, the guy who drove an auto rickshaw, to look up at the sky and think, hey, I can do that too. Of course, when you try to start a revolution, the old guard doesn't just roll out the welcome mat. Gopinath was about to fly head-on into a massive storm of opposition from everyone who wanted to keep the skies exclusive. And the obstacles were just insane. It took him 10 years, a full decade, just to get the license to fly. He was buried in bureaucratic red tape, he had established airlines actively working against him, he faced money problems, and even, believe it or not, sabotage attempts. The whole system was basically designed to shut people like him down. And through all of this, his character was constantly being tested. People told him again and again, look, just pay the bribes. It'll make things go faster. It was common practice. But his reason for refusing? He said, I can't look at my face. He just wouldn't do it. He chose the long, hard road of integrity over the easy way out. And he didn't walk that road alone. His wife, Bhargavi, was his partner in every single sense of the word. The film shows this beautifully. She wasn't just there for emotional support. She provided critical financial backing. She was absolutely essential to the whole journey. Okay, this brings us to the final and, honestly, the most amazing part of this whole story, the legacy. Because to really understand Gopinath's true impact, you have to look beyond what happened to his own airline. See, Deccan's rise was just meteoric. By 2007, it was the second biggest airline in India. But the competition was brutal, and financial pressures forced him to sell a stake to another airline, Kingfisher. And when Kingfisher eventually collapsed in 2013, the Deccan brand went down with it. Now that sounds like a sad ending, right? A failure. But it wasn't. Not even close. Because even though the company was gone, the idea, the revolution he started, that was just getting warmed up. The proof? Just look at this. Today, low-cost airlines, the exact model Gopinath fought tooth and nail to pioneer, they now command a staggering 75% of the entire Indian domestic market. He didn't just build a company, he rewrote the rules for the whole industry. In the end, his idea won. So his legacy is just undeniable. He proved that a low-cost airline could work in India. He inspired the very competitors like Indigo and SpiceJet that rule the skies today. He made it possible for millions of regular, middle-class Indians to fly for the first time. He didn't just change the industry, he completely transformed it forever. Which really leaves us with one final thing to think about. The company, Deccan, technically failed. It's gone. But its vision, its mission, succeeded on a scale that maybe even Gopinath himself couldn't have imagined. So let me ask you this. Is something really a failure if the company dies, but its vision goes on to change the world?